After what has felt like an eternity, Mars will finally leave Gemini and enter Cancer on Saturday, March 25th. Here, the planet of action, conflict, energy, and desire will stay until May 20th. In the lunar-ruled sign of Cancer, Mars is more indirect, has ebbs and flows energetically, and tends to go for projects with high emotional value. So choose things, people, and matters close to heart, and watch out for being passive-aggressive. Let's take a closer look. My name is Anastasia. I'm a traditional Western astrologer specializing in natal relationship and predictive astrology. If you'd like to work with me and have me take a look at your chart, describe your strengths, weaknesses, your gifts and talents, your career, love, you can book a natal chart reading with me. Or if you'd like to know what the year ahead has in store for you, you can get a year ahead reading or a solar return. There are links down below. If you're new to my channel, please subscribe, leave me a like or a comment. I really appreciate interacting with you guys, and it helps YouTube algorithm, encourages them to put it out to more people, which I'm very thankful for. Before I dive in, wanted to let you know that I have been approached by a company called Trova Trip that pairs influencers together with destinations. And I will be hosting a travel astrology retreat in late September. It's going to start on September 28th, right around the time of the full moon in Aries at the time. So there's going to be a full moon workshop with meditation. We're going to learn about houses. We're going to learn about aspects. We're going to go to a chocolate cocoa plantation and visit a waterfall, meditate in the trees. So it's going to be so fun. And the trip is about to go live in a few days. If you'd like to be notified as soon as it goes live, make sure to leave your email in the link down below. The first few people get an early bird rate, so there's a lot of benefits to leaving your email. So let's take a look. Let's talk about Mars, right? In general, Mars is the planet that is connected to like sharpness and blades and severing and separating. So Mars in a lot of ways has to do with how we stand apart. It has to do with our courage and bravery. Mars is the soldier, right? So the energy of like being brave enough to go after the things we want. So ambitious, quick, action-oriented, self-driven. Whenever Mars is placed in a sign other than Mars-ruled signs of Aries and Scorpio, Mars has to behave in accord to the rules of that sign, or in accordance to the rules of that planet that rules the sign, right? Like when you put Cancer is the sign, is the domain of the moon. Cancer is the sign of feelings. It's the sign of nurturing energy. It's generally connected to like motherhood and mothers, and or you know, protecting the weak, protecting the vulnerable, having the energy to build something, to pay a lot of attention to kind of like take things from beginning to an end. Cancer is a cardinal sign, so it's very much about initiating things, but initiating things that are close to heart. So when you put Mars in Cancer, in traditional astrology, it's considered to be in its fall. And having the planet in its fall means that it struggles to do its job with ease, right? Like there is a bit of a complication. You put the fighter in the domain of the moon, and it's like you're putting a soldier with like blades in the nursery, right? Or in the home of the elderly. So there's a bit of kind of difficulty, right? Mars always wants to separate. Mars always wants to assert, to dominate, to express aggression. So putting it in Cancer may either suppress the aggression to a point that it kind of bursts out, right? Like at its worst, you get people who can be like physically abusive to their partners. It's interesting, Chris Brown has Mars in Cancer, and he's known for being physically abusive towards Rihanna. So, and that's like, you know, like the very negative, like kind of people struggling to express frustration, then it boils over and hurts people around them. But at its best, Mars can fight for vulnerable people, right? Like you either fight with vulnerable people or you fight for vulnerable people. And kind of stepping up for those people who are sick or elderly, or, you know, Mars in Cancer protects women. We can actually expect during this period between March 25th and May 20th, I wouldn't be surprised if, like, you know, topics connected to female body and women and mothers will be in the media or will be a lot more pressing. So on the positive, like, it could be very protective, very kind of caring, they make wonderful social workers, they make really great firefighters. I actually know a guy who has Mars in Cancer, Venus in Aries, and how appropriate, right? Like fiery Venus, watery Mars. Watery Mars wants to protect vulnerable, and he goes fights fire with water. Like such a perfect example. Can also be like Mars in Cancer can make really great swimmers, right? You very literally have like Michael Phelps with Mars in Cancer. You put watery Mars in water, swims, gathers all the metals, and like every planet, every placement really depends on how we work with it and how we approach it, right? But like for this period when things can be a little bit more difficult, or it might be a little bit harder for us to assert ourselves, you can also lean into planets that are stronger, perhaps. Or, you know, like I'm selling candles and oils, right, for other planets, a little plug of my work. So you can also, with like Mars being in Cancer, you can lean a little bit heavier in like the moon in Cancer, which I also have candles and oils for. Or you can work on like Venus and get some items to help with Venus. I'm definitely going to create some candles for Mars as well, but I'm going to wait for it to enter Scorpio. So okay, so let's break it down a little bit more. Kind of what can we expect, right, on the collective level, on a general level? Like one thing I said, more attention to the rights of vulnerable, more kind of talk about it, more action about it, maybe like advocating for those who are vulnerable. Malcolm X, interestingly enough, had Mars in Cancer, a very known public figure who, you know, I think represents the energy of Mars in Cancer quite well. So expect to feel more protective of yourself and more protective of people in your life. As Cancer is a cardinal sign, it wants to initiate, so we will continue, you know, it's still Aries season. Mars rules Aries, Mercury's in Aries, Jupiter is in Aries. We are having an eclipse coming through in Aries. So, and all of this Aries energy is responding to Mars in Cancer. So Mars in Cancer would want to start projects that have that emotional connection, emotional value. So make sure you go for things that resonate on a deep level, and then look at them as a mother would look at a baby, right? Like Cancer. Sometimes people over exaggerate the connection of like Cancer to motherhood, but it doesn't matter, right? Like you can mother your projects, you can mother your friends, you can mother your colleagues. So it's just like you are willing to nurture something or someone at this time. There will be likely ups and downs when it comes to energy. Cancer is ruled by the moon. So when you put Mars in the lunar ruled sign, we go up and down. We go up and down. We cannot consistently necessarily just push through. So listen to your energy levels. If you feel like you want to take a nap and you can take a nap, right? But of course, like, just try to be communicative, because like one of the negatives of Mars in Cancer is being passive aggressive and feeling like letting the frustration build, while in reality, maybe you're at your last rope, last drop basically of your energy. So be good at communicating. Try to communicate, right? Don't let it build up. Even if it's like a little thing, of course, I mean, if it's like meaningless and something bothers you that's not that important, and you know you're not going to make a big deal out of it, but if you know that it's been going on, I'm a big proponent of like expressing things and talking about them. Of course, I don't always like to be on a receiving end of being told that there is something that I can improve about myself. That's like a Virgo thing, right? We're really good at giving advice. We're not always great at taking it, but ultimately we do come around. So Cancer is an emotional sign, so your feelings might be stronger. There might be more mood swings, right? There might be a need to separate from an unhealthy emotional connection, because Mars, like I said, has to do with like sharp objects and cutting and separating from things, and Cancer has to do with like feminine, emotional, protective energy. So sometimes maybe we need to like put up walls and boundaries and the toxic relationships that we have in our life, which could be difficult but necessary. You may, interestingly enough, want to like go towards water or do more swimming, right? There might be more like action in water, quite literally. You may see just in your environment, or you may feel like a desire to do like breast surgery, or maybe like more action around breast surgery, because once again, like Cancer rules chest, breasts, and Mars has the sharp blade, so it's interesting. It's an interesting time. And yeah, like Dolly Parton actually has Mars in Cancer, and she's known for having undergone like considerable plastic surgery. There's even a quote. She said something like, if I see something sagging, bagging, or dragging, I'll get it nipped, tucked, or sucked. So here we go. Another positive manifestation of this, like Cancer, another, I think, like cool thing about Cancer that doesn't get talked about as often is that Cancer is a very creative sign. It produces a lot of good writers, and like Mars has to do with shadows and darkness and like, and kind of, you know, action, conflict, all of those kind of things. So you can write, like writing about once again, like the shadows of nurturance, or the shadows of women, or the shadows of mothers. Stephen King has Mars in Cancer. David Lynch has Mars in Cancer. Two people who have very like interesting relationship with female characters, like right for like David Lynch at Twin Peaks, who killed Laura Palmer, and Laura Palmer, kind of her diary and her story just unraveling more and more and showing like the shadow side of her. Stephen King and like his works like Carrie and Misery and It, etc. So like writing about those topics could be a great way of dealing with your feelings. And like, you know, like I said, on the negative, know that your feelings will go up and down. Do things that ground you, do things that nurture you. Don't just give your energy out. Make sure you are contained within yourself and happy, and do whatever you can do to feel more serene. So let's take a look at 12 signs and see what Mars entering Cancer could bring for you. For those born with Aries on the ascendant, Aries rising sign, Mars is about to go into your 4th house. 4th house represents home, family, security, bonds to family members, right? So when Mars goes into this house, you can expect to feel more nostalgic. You can expect to kind of crave familiarity and maybe want to spend more time with family. I feel like, yeah, like nostalgia and like a sense of wanting to be with people you feel familiar with is more likely. More action in the home always, right? Like taking a new DIY project, painting walls a different color, buying kind of soft, comfortable things to wrap yourself in. You may be finding yourself defending your family, defending family members, speaking up on their behalf, but of course also maybe arguing with them more. And there might be some family dynamics that need to be examined, right? Like, is there a relationship with a family member that isn't healthy, and maybe you need to have a clear conversation with them. Maybe you need to express yourself. And of course, because of the up and down energy of Mars and Cancer, you may also feel like you do want to do these things, or you do want to have conversations, but maybe you don't always have the energy for them. So like I said, listen to your energy levels and do not push it if you're not feeling like it. Give yourself a little bit of time, take a break, and then come back to it. And also remember that you're likely to be more subjective, that maybe you're not seeing things from an objective perspective, which could be lovely sometimes, right, for building personal relationships, but not so good for making quick decisions. If you are a Taurus rising, Mars is going into your third house. Third house is the place of siblings. It's the place of your local, immediate environment. So with Mars here, you can see yourself maybe volunteering or maybe doing some kind of work for a sibling, kind of taking care of a sibling, right? Becoming more active in the local community. Cancer wants to nurture. Mars over here might want to kind of nurture community, siblings, or third house also deals with your skills and hobbies and your knowledge. So it could also be quite a busy time where you are investing into yourself, right? Like you're studying, you're taking exams, you're maybe traveling short distance, you're engaging with your classmates. It could be like a very intellectually stimulating, busy time. I remember when Mars was in Sagittarius, my third house, I was just like, my mind was like bursting with ideas, and it's a fire sign too. So it was like, what about this? What about that? So you can also expect this kind of more ideas. Potentially they will be a lot more personal or like emotionally oriented, right? Connecting with people you love. Watch out that you're not just getting overstimulated or spreading yourself too thin. Try to balance things, right? As always, like third house, busy mind, do meditation, journal, start like a gratitude journal, and yeah, like don't take on too many things, which doesn't necessarily feel like you will, but be mindful of that. For a Gemini rising, Mars finally leaves your first house. That should be very exciting. Mars in the first house probably created a lot of tension internally, a lot of kind of action, maybe a lot of focus on your health. So now finally that you've cleared a lot of that out, Mars goes into your second house, and second house deals with money and values, right? And let's start with values. Second house being connected to things that matter to you, to projects that matter to you. So figuring out what you do and figuring out how your everyday life, how your work fits your inner desires, your inner values, right? Like what is important to you, and are you doing that? Are you dedicating time to those things, or are you sort of going with the flow and then getting frustrated? So take time to think about that. It's Mars in Cancer, so maybe you need to figure out something that comes from the past, some kind of past project that you've abandoned, or, you know, a hobby that used to make you happy. Just like look within. And then in terms of money and second house being connected to money, this could also be a really good time to sort through your finances, set some money aside, start like a savings account, or pay off any debts, take care of your taxes. I did that. Feel very proud of myself. It wasn't as exciting as I was hoping it would be. I was sort of hoping, every time I pay my taxes, I hope that it's going to be great and I'll get some magical refund. But no, I ended up having to pay some extra, like a decent amount extra. But enough about my annoyance with taxes. Yeah, it's just like, it's a good time to start from things that matter to you and then take them in the outside world and make sure that you have your finances in order, make sure that you have your life in order, make sure that you pay off any debts so that you have more freedom to move towards your goals. And watch out for conflicts connected to money. Watch out for sort of feeling this need to nurture other people and spend on them if you don't have much to spend. So don't get in debt because you're trying to please somebody else and then later get frustrated with them. If you are a Cancer rising, Mars is leaving your 12th house, is entering your first house. So Mars in the first in general is a busier time for you. It's the time when you have more energy, but of course, due to the nature of Mars in Cancer, it's likely to still go up and down. You know, having Mars in your first house doesn't protect you from the moodiness or from the ebbs and flows of the energy. So you do feel more desire to reinvent yourself, to take action, but keep in mind that it's not always going to be 100%, and sometimes you may feel motivated to take a nap. So take a nap if you can. But I think that in general, there's like a sense of new beginnings, kind of being ready to start new things, to reinvent your look, to reinvent your, even become more visible, right? Like reinvent your brand, reinvent your strategy when it comes to expressing yourself. Watch out for being, like, you know, first house is your physical body, and sometimes Mars in the first house can make you feel like you need to exercise extra hard. So be careful of like hurting yourself, or be careful rushing into different places and getting like cuts and scrapes or breaking anything. You don't want that to happen. And of course, you are likely to be more argumentative potentially, or kind of like you have your desires, but you sometimes struggle to speak up about them openly. So you may need to figure out a better balance between expressing yourself and dealing with other people. If you are a Leo rising, Mars enters Cancer, and that is your 12th house. 12th house deals with your mental health. So Mars in the 12th house could be a really good time to examine your habits, to examine your routines and see what is serving you and what is not serving you, what kind of habits you have that maybe need to be left behind. Sometimes Mars in the 12th house brings trouble sleeping because you maybe, you know, with Cancerian topics, maybe you're examining your childhood, or you're looking at your traumas and vulnerabilities. So figure out a good way to have kind of a good spiritual practice. Could be a lovely medicine right now, a lovely tool to have on hand. Spirituality, yoga, meditation, therapy are all wonderful tools at this time. It could also be because 12th house deals with being on your own, working in solitude. You can also experience more desire to retreat, reflect, you know, journal on your own, kind of write on your own, because your energy can be less available, I think, to other people. It might be more personal and you want to like use it for yourself. And a lovely manifestation, I think, of the Mars in the 12th house, because 12th house deals with solitude, but it also represents people who are in solitude, people who are lonely, people who are isolated. So classically, 12th house has been connected to hospitals, prisons, mental asylums. So you may also feel a strong pull to give back and to help those people. So volunteering could also be a great way to use this transit. Next, we have Virgo rising. So for Virgo risings, Mars is going into your 11th house. And 11th house deals with friendships, networks, groups, social media. So you may experience a lot more action in those areas. You can likely also experience being more passive aggressive in those areas, or having those goals, having a desire to connect with a community, a desire to express yourself on social media, but not always having 100% of energy available to you. So you really need to navigate this transit, or like be mindful that as much as it can inspire new beginnings and friendships and new group projects and like starting a podcast, starting a social media page, it can also be a source of tension. It can also be a source of being at odds with your friends, needing to clear some air. And of course, the tendency here could be like, well, I love my friends, I'm gonna let this slide. But you can't let everything slide if things have been building up. You need to address it. So be mindful of that, right? But at the same time, it's a wonderful transit for working with others. It's a wonderful transit for volunteering, for nurturing any social media initiatives or any group projects or even any dreams, right? Like 11th house has to do with your dreams for the future. So you have more energy to baby them, to watch them through to the completion and fruition. And your social calendar can be getting busier, but like I said, once again, make sure that you're not saying yes to things that you don't want to do just because you don't want to upset people. Try to find a healthy balance and be honest with them. If you are busy doing something else, tell them that. Of course, don't be a jerk. Try to be nice. For Libra risings, Mars is going into the 10th house. It's the place of career, the place of work. So we get about 2 months of Mars in your house of career, and you're likely getting busier professionally, right? You may feel more driven, you may feel more energetic, you may feel more courageous to take on new projects, right? Cancer is a cardinal sign. Cancer is all about initiating things. So starting new projects, starting projects that are connected to women, motherhood, becoming a parent, right? Or becoming a mother. So like taking on your physical well-being, children, vulnerable, and that could be so many different things, right? Like there are so many people and things that are vulnerable. Working on projects that are close to heart, working on projects you feel like you're emotionally aligned with, asking for new responsibility professionally. If you're not working, it could be connected to school, it could be connected to just things that you do in the world, right? Like 10th house is, what are you known for? So you may be pivoting, you may be realigning and figuring out new interests, new passion projects, new hobbies. And watch out for the usual Mars and Cancer stuff, right? Like, don't push yourself too hard if you feel like you need a break. Don't be too hard on yourself. Watch out for being passive aggressive, especially with like authority figures, parents, mentors, bosses. Practice patience, but practice honesty as well. For my lovely Scorpio risings, Mars is about to go into your 9th house, inspiring action in the sector of education, travel, publishing, legal matters, and perhaps a review of your beliefs, right? Like 9th house sometimes is not as visible or as like bangy as the 1st or the 4th or the 7th or the 10th. But 9th house has to do with your mind in a lot of ways, or like your higher mind, right? Like your beliefs, your philosophies. So you may be exploring different philosophical traditions. Maybe you become more interested in learning about religion. Maybe, you know, it's the place of education. So a desire to go back to school, a desire to take a class. I think the main theme of the 9th house is that it's an expansion of the mind. It's an expansion of your knowledge. And a lot of times it's done through getting education, or it's done through traveling to a faraway place. So you can be in the next 2 months traveling, learning, maybe dealing with some legal matters, maybe writing and presenting your work. It could be a great time for that. Watch out for conflicts with teachers, classmates, people who are like classmates, right? I don't think I need to do quotation marks for that, like classmate-like people. And getting into ideological debates is quite likely here, or like you're thinking very, very subjectively about things, and if somebody comes in and gives you their perspective, it might be harder to let it in or harder to see it for what it is as just somebody else's opinion. So keep that in mind. For Sag risings, Mars is about to go into your 8th house. 8th house is Cancer in your chart and whole sign. So Mars is entering the 8th. And in the 8th house, we are looking at our relationships with other people, at all of the agreements we have. And sometimes it's an agreement with a bank because we have to pay them a mortgage, pay off a mortgage. Sometimes it's an unspoken agreement between us and our partner about who takes out the trash, right? So Mars coming into this house could, first of all, like, it's great that Mars is out of your 7th house. I think, you know, if you felt shakeups and relationships being more challenging, this should improve. It should get better. But you may feel like needing to address something in your relationship, needing to bring more fairness and justice to things, but maybe feeling unable to express yourself, at least at first, trying to not shake the boat, trying to maintain peace and have kind of understanding and balance in the relationship. While in reality, perhaps you need to face the difficulty, because 8th house is all about discomfort in a lot of ways. It's all of the things that make us feel uncomfortable. By going through them, we transform, we heal, we get better. So Mars in the 8th house could be all about letting go of fears, difficulties, having tough conversations, paying off debts, transforming something in your life, be that material, financial, or be that more spiritual, where you're healing yourself, or relational, where you're having tough conversations. Mars will encourage you to kind of work through those things. If you are a Capricorn rising, Mars enters Cancer, which is your 7th house. 7th house is all about one-on-one relationships, your business, connections, contracts you sign, and partnerships. So with Mars here, you will feel a strong drive to partner up. You may not be super direct about it, and your attitude towards it can go up and down, where maybe there are some times when you feel like very energetic and you want to go out there and meet new people, and at other times you feel like taking a break and spending some time in solitude. But overall, I think you can experience more action when it comes to relationships and when it comes to reaching out to other people and asking them for help and support. So it's a good time to connect to them, especially if you're working on the Cancerian pursuits, if you're working on telling a story, if you're working like a story of women, mothers, children, elderly, right? Like anything like that. Any kind of like personal connection, like building personal relationships could be great. Going on dates could be important right now. Making strides in a relationship, taking it to the next level, getting more serious is all possible here. And of course, I have to warn you, because Mars in Cancer is Mars that struggles with being passive aggressive sometimes. So you can also expect to butt heads with your partners and your business partners a little bit more during this transit. Be mindful of a tendency to not express frustration. Be aware that by hiding it in and stifling your frustration, you actually make things worse. So try to look for ways to compromise, but also express yourself and also talk things out with your partner. For Aqua rising, Mars is entering the 6th house. 6th house is actually a happy place for Mars, but of course, because it's in Cancer, there's going to be certain fine print clauses that we will have to discuss. But in general, Mars in the 6th house could mean more action when it comes to serving others. And because it's Cancer, maybe it's you serving your child, maybe it's you serving family members. And like by serving, I mean helping, assisting, being there for them. So Mars in the 6th house will kind of create more action. There will be more problems you have to solve. And because Cancer is connected to family, I feel like it's likely to be problems of family members, or, you know, problems connected to home, living situation, real estate, anything like that. There might be more work just in general. Maybe you're handling more things. Like I have an Aquarius rising friend. She's an accountant. So, you know, of course, right at the end of the tax season, I'm sure more people are jumping in and being like, you know, oh, I have to do my taxes. Be careful of taking on more than you can chew, because Mars can make it feel like you can handle it all, but then you feel frustrated, burnt out, overexerted, right? So on the negative, Mars here can bring like issues with colleagues, a sense of overwhelm. So you want to make sure that you're using your energy wisely, that you're listening to your body. 6th house also rules health. So implementing healthier routines that actually benefit your body and benefit your relationships is a lovely way of using this transit. And now let's talk about Pisces rising. Pisces risings are getting Mars in Cancer in the 5th house. And 5th house is the place of sex. It's the place of romance, creativity, and children. So you can expect a lot more action connected to those topics, right? Romantically, you can expect more kind of desire, more passion. It's a lovely transit for like love and romance because you have more energy and maybe you're exploring your and your partner's relationship more, trying new things, experimenting in the bedroom. You may be going on more dates. You may be experiencing an upliftment or like an increase in partnerships and people driven towards you and interested in you. So it could be like a busier time in that regard. Creatively, feeling more inspired and actually feeling like you have the energy to write, to take your hobbies, to dance, to even exercise, because 5th house does represent like competitive sports sometimes. So like feeling like maybe you want to start swimming or you want to express your energy and move your body. So it's a really lovely time to write or create or express yourself, right? Because on the negative, if you don't express yourself, you may end up feeling overwhelmed or frustrated, or sort of like be careful of conflicts in partnerships where you're suppressing anger and not expressing it, and then end up bursting on your partner and they're like, where did this come from? You were fine just a minute ago and totally happy with our relationship. So use the energy wisely. Use that energy to talk about your childhood, to do creative projects that connected to your kids, spend time with children, dedicate this Mars and Cancer energy to nurturing things that feel close and personal to you, and watch out for fighting with people that are close and personal to you. So this is it. It's an interesting transit to have because we still have so much energy in Aries. We're going to have Jupiter in Aries until May 16th. So pretty much the entire time, Jupiter will be ruled by Mars in Cancer. And, you know, Jupiter is exalted in Cancer. So there is a nice reception between the two. But there might be a bit of a tension between all the things you have to do and all the things you'd rather do. So don't overdo it, and take it easy, and find things that make your heart beat faster and go for them. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.